proposed and final budgets, for any interested staff to come and to hear about how the budget was put together and what was actually in the budget, and we would propose to do that again this year. And then the community is another audience. Again, the materials being posted on the website, press releases, and then the video record of all of these are the ways in which we intend to communicate about the budget. The other thing we're looking at this year, and Jennifer's working on this, is proposing changes to the format in the budget book. And that some of that comes about as a result of our new finance system. Some of it comes about as kind of a long-standing desire to simplify and clarify what's in the budget book. So we wanted to let you know we're looking at that in the next, I'd say, several weeks. We will be finalizing because we have to get the templates ready so that we can produce the proposed budget. But we're open to feedback and suggestions that would make the document more user-friendly. So in the process of designing a budget, the building blocks here are revenue projections, state budget impacts, compensation plans, the debts and liabilities, the county's priorities, and then the actual proposals that people make for expenditures. And those are the building blocks that you put together as you put together your budget. So to kind of pull the information that Jennifer and Meredith provided you with, the revenue projections for 2008-09. At this point, we're projecting the sales tax revenues to remain at prior year levels. There may be some increase, but we're not expecting it to be a significant increase. The same is true for property tax revenues. There will be possibly a couple percentage point increase, but in general, it's projected to remain at prior year levels. The state payments, as you've heard, the state is planning to delay and reduce subventions, and that obviously has an impact. And then we expect there to be a minimal fund balance carryover from the 2007-08 fiscal year. So those are all things that count as revenues in 2008-09. When you pull in the second quarter fiscal report, we're estimating that the county will be within its budgeted net county cost, so that's good news. It beats being over. And the factors in that include that we did have increased property tax revenues over what was budgeted in the first place, and there are salary savings as well. So the summary of the second quarter is that CEO will continue to work with departments to stay within budget, but our current projection is a minimal fund balance carryover going into 2008-09. As you recall, the numbers projected at around $313,000, but we're only halfway through the year. So it may be more, it may be less, and we just don't know. $313,000. Just to contrast the previous year's fund balance carryover, which there were a number of factors involved in that, was close to $2 million. So $313,000 is not a very large fund balance, and it will not have a significant impact on how we balance next fiscal year.
Allison, that first bullet point, we still do have time remaining in this year, and I really like to stay on track to stay within those budgets.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, any budget units where it looks like they're going to go over, we're going to be talking with them. And then the other part of it is, what do we do this fiscal year to get ready for next fiscal year? And that's the other piece of this. It's one thing to stay within budget. It's another thing to position ourselves in a way that we're best situated to deal with the challenges of next year. So at this point in time, our best estimate is that there will be a minimal increase in overall local revenues, and then you kind of add on top of that whatever the state impacts are and what the fund balance carryover might be. Which brings us to the state budget impacts. You got a long list of all those impacts. There are a lot of impacts specifically directed towards Medi-Cal providers and education. Those do not directly impact the county of Mendocino, but certainly there are indirect impacts in people not necessarily getting the services that they need. The other aspect of it is, in this county, Medi-Cal pays for, well, I know it pays for something like 60% or more of the births in this county, and it probably pays close to 50% of just basic medical care. And so that is part of the economy in this county and could be impacted. There are also, just comment on the delayed state payments. What that does is it shifts, it's using the counties as a bank, and that's the way the folks from CSAC put it. The state has come to the limit of its own borrowing power. And so to deal with its cash flow difficulties this fiscal year, they're essentially turning to the counties, using the counties as banks to basically allow them to hold on to the money that they owe us longer. But in the meantime, then that transfers the cash flow problems to the counties. And it has an impact in two ways. One is on any additional borrowing you have to do, you pay interest on that. But there's also lost interest in money that would otherwise be in our treasury. It's now at the state level. We don't get the interest on that.
So my earlier comments about the couple of TOT providers that are delinquent, they're just learning from the state government.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Good citizens.
Not a very good lesson to learn. Anyway, the next fiscal year impacts, the largest impacts will be in HHSA, public safety, and the library. So, other potential state cuts, the Proposition 36 funding. I mean, those of you who've been watching the state budget over the last several years, it's kind of like round up the usual suspects, and we've been through this before. Some of these will possibly go away, and others of them won't go away as things that we need to deal with. But it's certainly not a new discussion. So another factor as we put together the budget has to do with compensation policy, and that is reflected in the MOUs signed with all of the bargaining units. The board actually finalized a general compensation philosophy in July of 2006. I thought I'd remind you of that. And then that was reflected in the negotiations with all of the bargaining units and the compensation plans that are contained in those MOUs. And the terms are all go through late 2009, some extend into 2010. So this will get us all the way through 2008, 2009, and some of it will hit then in the following fiscal year as we renegotiate contracts. In terms of implementing the compensation plan, the activities that we've engaged in this year involve reviewing and revising the internal equity, and that's basically already reflected in these numbers with the exception of the study of the classifications in the Health and Human Services Agency is still pending. That will be completed in the next couple of months and implemented again in this fiscal year. But for this next round, we will be conducting salary surveys, and that will affect the market adjustments that are due to go into effect in July. So the summary of the impact of compensation issues on the budget, the maximum adjustment in 2008-09 will be a wage increase of 7%, an overall increase of 7%, and that assumes the highest possible market adjustment of 3.5% in July of 2008, and a COLA of 3.5% in January of 2009. That's for SEIU and 5 other units. That's clearly the majority of the employees. DSA, Deputy Sheriff's Association, and the MCLEMA, the Law Enforcement Management Association, are on slightly different time tracks. Their contracts go April to April instead of, but if I'll just finish my sentence, but they're basically within the same percentages. So.
Supervisor Pinches.
Allison, what is the 08-09, what's the budget requirement to meet these? Like how much is it in dollars is it going to take to, in our budget for the 808-09?
Yeah, we actually have not done the salary projection